Picture this. You're American and you love football. Not the kind where you kick a ball, the kind where you run around with an egg-shaped ball under your arm and crash into people's shoulder first. Problem is, in America, the word football is already taken. So what do you call the other game? The one where you actually use your feet? Easy. You invent a new word. Soccer. And here's the funny part. Americans didn't invent that word. The British did. Let's find out how that happened. Rewind to mid-19th century England. Every school and college had its own version of football, and the rules were wildly different from place to place. At some schools, you could pick up the ball and run with it. At others, touching the ball with your hands was strictly forbidden. Feet and head only. The rules varied so much that graduates of different schools literally couldn't play each other. Nobody agreed on what you were even allowed to do on the field. Something had to change. On October 26, 1863, representatives of English clubs met at the Freemasons Tavern in London to finally sort things out. They founded the Football Association and wrote down one unified set of rules. The ball is played with feet and head. Hands are off limits. At that very meeting, one delegate seriously argued that tripping and kicking opponents in the shins was the true essence of football. Nobody agreed with him, and in his club, Blackheath stormed out in protest, taking their rougher version of the game with them. Just like that, England ended up with two separate football codes. Here's where it gets interesting. In the 1870s and 80s, Oxford and Cambridge students had a habit of shortening every word and slapping an "yar" on the end. Breakfast became brekkers. Rugby football got shortened to rugger. So what do you do with a long, clunky word like association? You chop it down to assoc, add the beloved and you get a soccer, which quickly simplified to soccer. The word is often credited to a student named Charles Reeford Brown, famous for his love of these slang shortenings. The game even had another short-lived nickname, footer, which never really caught on. By the early 1890s, soccer was already printed casually in English newspapers right alongside football, as if they were the same word. And here's something important. The word soccer was coined and used by the British, not by Americans. For decades, both football and soccer were used calmly and interchangeably in Britain, even in official publications of the Football Association itself. Nobody thought twice about it. There was nothing un-British about the word at all. Across the Atlantic, a similar story was unfolding. In the late 1860s, American colleges were also playing a kicking game very close to Britain's association football. Feet only, no hands. But in the early 1870s, several colleges, including Harvard, switched to a rougher style closer to rugby, where carrying the ball with your hands wasn't just allowed, it was central to the game. That hybrid quickly developed its own rulebook, and within a couple of decades it had grown into its own sport entirely. American football with the oval ball and the helmets we know today. The kicking game didn't disappear in America, though. British immigrant workers brought it across the ocean, and it took root in industrial towns like St. Louis, Fall River, and Newark. By the 1920s, there was even a full professional league drawing crowds, second only to baseball. But since the word football in America was now firmly attached to the game with the oval ball, it made sense to borrow that very British slang term for the kicking game instead. In 1913, an organizing body was formed, the United States Football Association. In 1945, once the confusion had become unbearable, it renamed itself the United States Soccer Football Association. The word football was finally dropped from the name altogether in 1974, becoming simply the United States Soccer Federation, U.S. Soccer, as we know it today. And here's the irony. The word soccer lived happily in Britain itself all the way through the mid-20th century. But after World War II, once soccer became firmly associated with America, the word started to sound a little too American back home. By the 1980s, British fans had largely stopped using it, almost on principle, just to avoid sounding like they'd picked it up from across the pond. Even though, again, the word was born in Oxford. Today, for a lot of British fans, soccer is practically a dirty word. Fast forward to today. In 1994, the United States hosted the World Cup. Yes, the one they call soccer. And it set off a massive surge in the sport's popularity nationwide. In 1996, the professional league MLS launched, and a lot of its clubs deliberately added FC Football Club to their names, a nod to the game's British roots, even while still calling the sport itself soccer. And right now, in the summer of 2026, the United States is hosting the World Cup again, this time alongside Canada and Mexico. Today, soccer is the official term not just in the US, but in Canada, Australia, Ireland, and South Africa too. Basically anywhere the word football was already claimed by another sport. So next time someone says Americans invented this ridiculous word soccer, you can set them straight. The word was coined in England at Oxford over 100 years ago to tell football apart from rugby. Americans simply held on to it, right around the time the British themselves decided to forget it. Both words, football and soccer, are thoroughly British. Each country just settled into its own habit over time. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe. We'll dig into more weird stories from the world of sports next time.